Hi everyone. Uh, are there any questions on what we have seen so far? Are there people who have tried merging arrays uh, in a third array as well as in situ? Any issues with that? Okay. So we'll probably move ahead from here. But if there are any questions about this, please feel free to discuss on our Google. Okay, so we'll discuss a little bit about another problem here or another set of problems here. One is that you want to create a histogram. Histogram of what? Well, let's assume that you are given, let's say, a set of students and all of them have different marks. And we would like to categorize the students in these buckets, right? So these buckets could be, let's say, 0 to 10 marks, 10 to 20 marks, and so on. This such a histogram might be useful if you want to find out how the variation in the class is when, for example, final class committee meeting happens. Yeah, please think about this, how to solve this problem. And if there are any questions, please feel free to discuss. Alternatively, if you have written down pseudocode or actual code, that can also be displayed in the chat box. So, any suggestions, any comments, any issues in getting this to work? Okay, Anirudh is asking, can we use dictionaries? No, because we have not seen those. So of course, you can use dictionaries if you are aware. Okay, Mayank, can you explain the question once? So you are given, let's say, n students having n marks from 0 to 100, and we would like to bucketize these students into these different buckets. Each bucket is decided by the marks. So 0 to 9 is one bucket, 10 to 19 is another bucket, and so on. Finally, 90 to 100 is the last bucket. So maybe there are, let's say, 10 such buckets available with you. So, and we would like to push students into that or the marks into that, and we are not interested in exactly which student has got which marks. That information we have. What we are interested in is how many students are there in each bucket. Right? So we are interested in the counts of each bucket, and that we can plot. Right? As a histogram, we can plot this. So we would like that to be implemented. Coming back to Aniruddha's question, that can we use dictionary? So dictionary is a data structure where you could use some sort of hashing technique, let's say, to to store the data. Right? So we are going to study that a little later. But in this case, also the idea is going to be very similar to what we use in the hashing. But yeah, I'll not explain the exact part related to hashing right now. But the ideas are going to be very similar, and you will see that it's going to be very naturally modelable when we are talking about such problems like histograms. All right. So, any questions, concerns so far? Okay. Then let me ask you one question. What is the, so assuming that there are n students in the class, what is the complexity of creating a histogram? Okay, Chotu Kumar says order n, Sai Charan n, Mayank says n. Dilip is writing the code. Maybe buckets of 10 maybe, but yeah, go ahead. Murari says order n. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll also ask you, what is the space complexity of this code? So we have not yet defined what is space complexity, but you can visualize it in a similar manner, like the time complexity. Can it be order 1, order n, order log n, etc.? Yashwant Reddy says order n. Chotu Kumar says constant, that is 10. Ashwin says order number of buckets. Mayank says order 1. Others says order 1. Murari says order bucket size. Manichandra says, is the data sorted? That's a good question. No, the data may not be sorted. So, unless it is given in the problem, let's not assume anything about the data. So, if it is not given in the problem, whether it is sorted or not, then essentially that means it is unsorted. But let me ask you in this manner. If you know that the data is sorted, can you do better than order n? Okay, Tanay has written int vector, vector of int, histogram marks array, histogram of 10, histogram of I equal to 0, and the histogram of int of marks list of by 10 plus equal to 1, return histogram. Good. That seems to be a correct pseudocode. Tripathi says, if sorted, we can do something like binary search, but you are searching for what? And how many times will you search? Right. So, any suggestions for that?
So we can search for the position in array such that the previous element is greater than if it is sorted in ascending order, then the subsequent element is greater and the previous element is lesser. Such a position we have to find. And then we can compare 0, 10, 20 and so on. Find those positions alone. Once we find the positions, the position is technically the number of elements that are lesser than.
Good. So, what some of you have suggested, for example, Aniruddha just suggested, Manichandana had asked, and Kaustubh has written that you can search for the boundaries of such elements, right? It's a little tricky. It's not exactly exact value that you will get. For example, you will have to modify the binary search. For example, you might be searching for, let's say, the value 10, but the largest value below 10 might be, let's say, 5, or the next value above 10 might actually be 23, and so on. So you will have to be careful. You will have to remodel your binary search such that you find that boundary. Why are we interested in this boundary? Because as soon as you get that boundary, you have found the index of the the boundary of the buckets, right? So the two buckets are going to be on these two sides, and therefore you precisely know where the end of the previous bucket is or the start of the new bucket is. And using that, we can quickly find out where the boundaries are and essentially indices. And if you have those boundaries, then you will be able to figure out how many elements are there. So that's a very good approach. In fact, it will be better than order n. In this case, what will be the complexity of such an approach, binary search approach? Order log n into number of buckets into log n. Got it. So as Ashwin Krishna Kumar, Shania, and Kaustubh and Kaushik have said, it's going to be log n into number of buckets. Kaustubh, it will be log n for each bucket, and therefore we will require n into log. Number of buckets into log. All right. So that sounds good, but there is a small twist when it comes to the space complexity. You guys have mentioned that the space complexity is going to be order 1 when we assume that it is unsorted, right? But if we assume that it is sorted and you want to do binary search, then we need all the data available in the array. If we assume that the data is ordered, sorted, and it is available in the array, then you need actually that array. Otherwise, if it is unsorted, then you could just go on reading one element at a time from whichever input it is coming, let's say scanf or scene, and you can go on processing it and fill up this bucket list that you have, the histogram of buckets. And therefore, the space complexity was equal to order of number of buckets. Whereas in case of binary search, you will require the array to be available, and therefore you will require a complexity of n, order n, apart from the number of buckets. Right? So, and order n is going to be larger than number of buckets. So we'll say that the space complexity is order n. Right? So this is a very simple example, but it also gives you a trade-off between the space complexity and time complexity. So many times it so happens that in your algorithms, in your applications, when you are dealing with large amount of data and you want to reduce the time complexity, which is going to be an important factor in real world applications, you can think of storing some information. It is typically going to be an auxiliary information, or let's say intermediate stage of your algorithm. Store this information such that you'll be able to process it in a later stage, and that can give you an advantage in terms of time complexity. So you will trade off some space to gain in the time complexity or even in the execution time. So Kaushik is asking, can you please explain again how to calculate space complexity? I could not get it. Space complexity is the amount of space required as a function of the input size. So in this case, since we require n sized array, we'll say that it is order n, right? If you are doing it in a binary search. But when I'm creating a histogram, the way the code, the pseudocode is shared, right, by Tanay, it's going to require, it doesn't really require all the elements to be stored. You can process the elements as and when they come. So you essentially require only one scanf, only one element, only one scanf per iteration per element, and that can store it in a variable, and you just push it into a particular bucket based on the value in that variable. And therefore,
sir, but even in that code, like you're passing the whole marks array, right? You're not passing it element by element to the function.
Correct. So if you assume, yes, correct, Sai Charan. If you assume that the array is given as an input, then you are definitely going to require order n space. But you can do better if you have such an algorithm. The algorithm does not depend upon that it should have an array as an input. So if you write the algorithm in that manner, like we said, order n is also order n square and order n cube. You can always make your algorithm more and more inefficient. So in case of space complexity also, you can use more and more space, but it is not required. If you talk about the tightest possible algorithm, then you don't need to pass the array. In case of the first one, where we are just going over each element. But in case of binary search, we definitely require the array. You cannot do away with the array. So that is, Kaushik, is this okay? The amount of space required. For example, sometimes if we are talking about an n cross m matrix, then we'll say that I require order mn space, the amount of space that we require. There could be other constants that we might use. So it will be mn plus c, where c is a constant. That is okay, that mn is going to subsume that orders.
Sir, one more small doubt.
Yes,
so in case of the sorted array, what you said was like we are looking for the boundaries, right? So looking for the boundaries itself, like we are not sure what exactly we are looking for. So how can we say that the time complexity will be number of buckets times log n? Like,
okay, good question. So Sai Charan is asking, we are not really sure what we are looking at. Actually, we know what we are looking at, just that it might not exist. In this case, we are looking at specifically 10, 20, 30, 40 like that. And these numbers might not exist. But we said that binary search in the worst case the worst case is going to happen when you don't have the element present, right? So then you will search at all possible places. But the number of such comparisons is going to be bounded by log n. And therefore, in this case also, even if 10, 20, 30 are not present, your search complexity is going to be order log n for one comparison, one search. And therefore, you need to know where you are searching for. I mean, what you are searching for, 10, 20, 30. So you need to know these endpoints of the buckets. And as long as you are searching for it, it should be fine.
Okay.
Any other concerns here? Okay, so I hope this space versus time trade-off was clear. If there are any questions, we can please feel free to ask. I'm going to move ahead from here. Another problem that you should definitely try out is I'm given two arrays, right? N1 and N2. Okay, I'm given two arrays N1 and N2, and I want to compute a product matrix. Right? What does the product matrix mean? It just means that P of ij, ith row and jth column is going to be given or computed from ith entry in A and jth entry in B, a product of these two. So please think about how you will do it. Right? You can as well write the pseudo code. And if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. You can also share the code if you have it. So, since Kaushik asked this question about the space complexity, I'll also mention there was a slide which I kind of skipped some time back when we were talking about time complexity. There are different notions of complexity. It's not necessarily about time all the time. Sometimes it is about space also, but there are other notions. For example, you might be interested in identifying how much communication happens across, let's say, different machines in a cluster, right? In a cloud environment, there are large number of machines which are running your codes, and then there might be communication happening across them. Communication meaning some data exchange is happening across machines over the network. This communication might turn out to be prohibitive from the perspective of the overall execution time. And sometimes you would like to minimize that. Sometimes you would like to model that communication complexity rather than time complexity or space complexity, or apart from time complexity and space complexity. Sometimes you are interested in finding out the amount of energy consumed by your program. That can be a function of the input size. So sometimes we might want to model the energy or power complexity of your computation. So depending upon your application, you might be interested in different aspects or multiple of these aspects. Okay, so any questions on this product matrix? It should be relatively straightforward, but what will be the complexity of computing the product matrix?
So could you explain the product matrix problem statement again? Like we have two one-dimensional arrays.
Yeah, sorry, Aniruddha, your voice was not clear.
Am I audible?
You are audible a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, like, could you explain the problem statement again?
Yeah, so the problem statement is you are given given two arrays of sizes n1 and n2, and then you are given a matrix which you would like to populate. That matrix is of size n1 into n2, and you would like to populate it such that each entry Pij is a product of multiplication of Ai and Bj. So Shania says that's order n1 into n2. Okay. Any other suggestions? Kaushik has given the code. Okay, no, never mind. Yeah, just that those M and N arrays, those could be single dimensional arrays. I mean, we don't really require two dimensional. The P array definitely we require to be a two dimensional array. Sure, go ahead. Ashwin has given the code. Matrix copy in, copy B in, get element AI into BJ. Okay. Kaustubh is asking, wouldn't we always require order n1 into n2 time to at least initialize the matrix? How can we reach order n1 plus n2? That is my question. So can we do it in better than n1 into n2 time? And Kaustubh's argument is that if we are touching every element of the product matrix, if we are touching every element of the product matrix, right? So ij is going to go from n1 to n2, and therefore we are going to go over all the elements of the P matrix. Therefore, the complexity has to be at least n1 into n2. It can be larger, but it has to be at least as much as, and therefore it cannot be done in order n1 plus n2 time or n1 log n2 time or any other function which is smaller than n1 into n2. The reason why I'm mentioning this is that using such an argument, you will be able to find out the lower bound of the order complexity, right? So the complexity cannot be lower than n1 into n2. And what is n1 into n2? n1 into n2 is the space complexity. So if you have to write to this much space, you cannot take time which is smaller than whatever amount of data you are writing. What happened in the previous case, histogram, right? So our sortedness was over order n, right? So there were n elements into the given array. But when we were doing binary search, we were not touching every element of this array. We were not reading every element of this array. And therefore, our space complexity was order n, but our time complexity could be below order n. And in fact, it was number of buckets into log n. In fact, if you just take a single binary search or an order n array, sorted array, then the space complexity is order n, but the time complexity is log n because we are not touching every element. So this is a very important point. Only because you have space complexity of order n doesn't mean that time complexity will be at least order n. Only if you are touching all the elements, then only the space complexity is going to be a lower bound for the time complexity. Any questions on this part? Okay, Ashwin has a question. If we only need a static matrix and aren't concerned about access time, we can store copies of A and B in order n1 plus n2 for construction, and every access performs a multiplication. Yeah, that is true, but I didn't understand. So, are you giving an answer to one of my earlier questions, or? So, sorry,
I was just trying to say that it's possible to, do the construction in order of n1 plus n2 time if you're willing to compromise elsewhere. Like if you don't want a matrix that you can change.
I didn't understand. How will you do it in order n1 plus n2 time?
So what you will have is not a real matrix. It will be like a constant matrix. So that every time, let's say you only want to access some 5 or 6 elements from this matrix and then forget about it. So you would not actually create a matrix. You just create a data structure which multiplies the appropriate numbers every time you need it.
Right.
So construction will be faster, but it will be a constant.
So the space complexity can reduce if you are not storing into the elements, but the time complexity will still be n1 into n2, isn't it?
No, because when you're constructing, you won't actually be creating every element. You'll just be storing the array someplace else. That's all.
Then I'm not able to see the algorithm.
It's not a real matrix. It's just a It's a sort of
No, that is fine.
monometric.
As long as you are computing every element. I mean, you might not be storing in. You don't have
You
this
know, if you're
metric.
computing every element, you will definitely need N1 times N2 times. So
Oh, but then how? I didn't understand. How will you then compute every element? I mean,
no, you would not compute every element. I mean, you would only like you would compute on the fly. If you need. I mean, in this case, it doesn't really make sense because you would probably want a more traditional matrix which you can change and everything. But it's possible if you're willing to make serious compromises. All I was trying to say.
yeah. So one possibility, if you are interested in only printing the matrix, right? You are not interested in computing the whole matrix, then you can have a single variable which is going to be storing the value of AI into BJ and just output it, and then reuse that variable. Right. So that could be one way. Although that is still going to require order n1 into n2 time, but space complexity for P is not really going to be required in the sense that it's going to be constant, but for A and B, you will still require order n1 and order n2 space. Okay. Any other concerns here?
Sir?
Yeah, Anirudh.
Yeah, so building on what Ashwin was saying, so like if we don't need the array at present as a matrix, but we need to access elements as and when we need it, then as and when we need the P of ij, we can just calculate it, right? So that would be order of m plus n.
Yeah, that I'm not able to see that why it will still be order n1 plus n2, because if you need all the elements of this product matrix, not at one time but at different times also, and you are computing it on the fly, you will still require n1 into n2 number of multiplications, right?
No, sir. Let's say we want to access the P of ij.
Right.
So we just to calculate the P of ij, we just need A of I, which is constant time access, and B of j. So if we have the original input array stored, then it will sort of be to give P of ij, it's not a big deal. Just to return the P of ij is a constant operation.
No, that is okay. I understand that. You just require one multiplication for one element Pij. That I agree. So if you are not storing the matrix and computing Pij on the fly, you still require you just require one multiplication. That I completely agree. But the number of such multiplications is going to be decided by all the values of I and all the values of j. I mean, the multiplication of them. So therefore, I think that should be n1 into n2. I still don't know why it is n1 plus n2. I mean, in the worst case, you might be interested in all the values Pij. That's the expectation.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it won't be n1 plus n2. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks for that discussion, though. Anish says, if our system can perform matrix multiplications, can we do better? So, yeah, Anish is talking about a little bit of parallel processing. In parallel processing, some of the time complexities that we have been seeing can reduce, not necessarily, but can reduce, because you can perform certain operations in parallel. So the amount of parallel time that you will require can actually get. So if you have actually n1 into n2 number of parallel cores or parallel threads which are able to perform these operations, then you can do all of this processing in constant time, because all these n1 into n2 cores can perform one multiplication at a time. All these multiplications are independent of each other, and therefore you will require just order one time, parallel time, to get this done. Although for the most part in this course, we are going to be working with sequential codes. But yeah, what Anish says does make sense, that there is a notion of parallel time complexity, which can reduce this if you allow certain parallel operations to be performed. That is correct. Think about it as an array copying, right? So you have an array A and array B, right? You are copying A to B. In general, you are going to require order n time. But if you do it in parallel, you just require one step, assuming that every thread is operating on one element at a time. So all of this is possible in parallel. So then the time complexity would reduce. Murari says we need to do it for every ij. Yes, Chotu says yes. Okay, great. Any other concerns, questions here? Okay, so again, an important point here, even if we take Pij to be a single variable, we are not storing the complete matrix, single variable, that means that the time complexity is bounded and we are touching that element, then the time complexity is lower bounded by this space complexity, which is order 1. And therefore, it's always going to be above order 1. In general, it is going to be when we store the product matrix and touching every element, it is order n1 plus n2, the space complexity, and therefore time complexity is at least that much. Kaushik says by default we would consider sequential time complexity only. Yes, in this course only sequential time complexity. If you join GPU programming course probably next semester, then we can worry about the parallel time complexity. All right. Any other concerns, questions? Okay. So one more, a little challenging problem is what I have mentioned this from Geeks for Geeks. So let's say that you are given an unsorted array. So in this case, I'm specifying that it is unsorted, and these are different roll numbers. And I'm interested in finding out the smallest CS18 student or CS18 roll number which is absent today. Okay. What does that mean? That means that let me just that means assuming that the input is like this, right? So there are some non-CS students in the input, and this is unsorted. The first, so this 237 means that CS18B002 and so on. So the first roll number which is absent in this first array is essentially CS18B001. So that should be the output, right? Assume that you can read the roll number in constant time, right? Don't think that CH18B005, etc. That will require larger amount of time, or it helps. You can assume that that is going to be a constant width, which is 8 characters, which is going to be order constant. So we can view this as order 1 operation. In the second array, that 1 is present here. Similarly, there is 2 and 3, but there is no 4, and therefore my output can be 4, or output should be 4. In the third one, 1 is appearing probably twice, and then 2 is missing, and therefore I will say the first CS18 roll number, which is absent today, is going to be 2. Right? So is the problem statement clear? Anybody?
Why is 1 appearing twice?
Why is 1 appearing twice? Yeah, maybe I have. There are multiple TAs who are going around in the class and they have noted down the roll numbers. So therefore it is appearing. But yeah, it doesn't matter. You can assume values to be unique. It's okay. No, not an issue. Right. So if there are no further questions, then I would like you to think about how will you solve this problem. What are CH and E? Those are just some other roll numbers. I'm interested in CS roll numbers. Right? If it helps, you can view this as there are positive numbers, zeros, and negative numbers, right, in the input. Don't worry about roll numbers at all, just positive, negative, and zeros. And I'm interested in the smallest positive number missing. I'm interested in the smallest positive number missing. Right? So that could be another way in which you can view this, but this is probably easier to, not easier, but yeah, some people might find it easier. CH and E are the chemical engineering and electrical engineering students. Those are the roll numbers. But I'm interested in the CS18 roll number. There could be CS19 also. I'm not interested in that. Is the largest roll number bounded? Okay, that's a good question. Okay, let's take that as a specialization. What happens, as Ashwin is suggesting, in case you know what is the largest number in this array, can you do better? Or can you solve the problem efficiently? Please think a little bit about the algorithm. In what ways you can solve this, what will be the time complexity, what will be the space complexity. Salman is asking, where is roll number 1 in the first array? The roll number 1 doesn't exist. So that is what we would like to find out. That which number is absent in the array, which is the smallest roll number that is absent. Right? So, yeah. Chaya says order n. Okay. How will you do that in order n? Note that this is unsorted. Yeah, but what are you searching for? Sunil Kumar. As it is unsorted, linear search is mandatory order n. That is correct. The linear search is mandatory. But how will you know which roll number is absent?
So we'll define roll number 1 as absent first, and if that is present, then we'll increase by 1. Then keep increasing.
We'll search for roll number 1. Okay. If it is absent, then we'll give that. But then you
If
will.
present in that array, then we will increase roll number by 1.
Correct. But then I can have 1 to n as the input array, as an adversary, as the devil's advocate, right? I can have 1 to n as the array. And then the first number that is absent is going to be n plus 1. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
in
and
that case, right, the complexity will become n square, order n square. Okay. Kaushik says we can search for minimum number in order n, right? So how will you know the minimum number? Right? So I gave an example, 1 to n elements are there. And therefore the least number, roll number, which is absent is going to be n plus 1. And in that case, we will require order probably n square time if we search for a particular element. Yashwant Reddy says order of max number. Right. So this is a very interesting point. Right. So most of the algorithms that we have seen are dependent on the input size or input parameters, which we call as m, n, etc. At no point in time we said anything about the value present in, let's say, the input. For example, if I give you an array of size n, we said that the complexity is in terms of n if I want to linear search. I never said, or we don't say, that it is going to be dependent on the values that are present. When it is dependent on the value rather than the size of the input, that is called as a pseudo polynomial time algorithm, or let's say pseudo linear in this case, because the size might still be order n, but the value might actually be very large. So such algorithms are less interesting compared to which are completely polynomial size, completely polynomial time. The reason being that as you increase the element value, the complexity goes on increasing. Right? So that we don't want. We would like it to be bounded by the size of the input rather than the value contained in it. Right? So in this case, Yashwant Reddy, how will you say that you will be able to do it in order max number amount of time?
Like, since we know the maximum number, let's say it is 15, we'll look for 14. If 14 is not there, we'll store it, and we'll reduce it for 13. If 13 is not there, again we'll store it. If 12 exists, like that, we'll iterate up to 1, like last one. We'll know the minimum number.
Right. So there could be, so you might require order n time to find out the max number. You just go over the linear array and you find out the max. Once you have the max in order n time, then you can use this max number to figure out, to search for the elements which are probably going to go from, let's say, 0 to max number or 1 to max number. Right. So then you are going to require a complexity which is order n plus max number of time. So that could be, yeah, a similar approach is given by Ashwin, I think. Create a Boolean array of size max of roll number. Iterate over roll numbers, ignore non-CS. Every time a roll number is encountered, update the Boolean array. So which element is present? That is what this Boolean array is specifying. And then iterate over this Boolean array, right? So exactly the space, the time complexity that we discussed, n plus maximum roll number. So this is a correct algorithm and it will work. Sai Charan says, we can sort it and check in order n square time. Yes, that is, again, the order n plus max roll number is a pseudo linear time algorithm because it is dependent on the value inside the array. Whereas Sai Charan's n square algorithm is a proper polynomial time algorithm, or in this case, quadratic time algorithm. It's just that there is a trade-off. If the max number is small, then Ashwin's algorithm is going to perform better. If the max number is large, then Sai Charan's algorithm will perform better. Right? So you can sort the array, right, and then go over the array to find out which one will perform better. In general, n square is the could be a sorting time, but sorting can also be done in order n log n time. So we can say that it can perform in order n log n time. Good.
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
sir, here pseudo time means the constant sieve where you compare the elements. Is it coming from there?
No. Pseudo polynomial time is about the value that is stored. So your complexity is now dependent on the value stored, because you said that we are going to maintain a Boolean array of size, which is the maximum roll number. Maximum roll number could be 1 million, right? Whereas n might actually be 10 or 20 or 50. But your maximum roll number could be large, and therefore you will still require a time which is dependent on that. That is where it is coming. Of course, internally it is going to perform certain operations like comparison or addition, which is proportional to the value of maximum roll number.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Aniruddha says we can sort it and check number is missing in order n square log n time. No, actually you can do it in order n log n time. Order n log n time. That should be okay, right? So yeah, Chotu Kumar has suggested n log n. Yes. So sorting you can actually perform in n log n time, minimum amount of time. We are going to study sorting a little later, but yeah. Then Kaushik says initially we need to find the maximum roll number. Yes, that can be done in order n time. Finding a maximum in an array of size n can be done in order n time. You just go over them, even if it is unsorted. If it is sorted, actually it can be done in order 1 time. If all the elements are from CS, these are non-CS, then you might require still some work to be done. Okay. So finding the maximum, finding the minimum, finding the sum of all the elements, all of these operations can be done in a linear scan of the array, and therefore these are all order n operations. Okay. Anybody has any suggestions towards? Okay, Chotu is saying, why we need maximum roll number if we sort and start iterating over sorted array? No, you don't need that. That's what, there are two algorithms. One is, which is dependent on the value max roll number, which is going to take n plus max roll number time. The second algorithm is going to require n log n time if you sort it and then do a linear scan over the array. Right? So these are two different algorithms having two different time complexity. Okay. Parth says create an array an and initialize all elements to 0. The smallest roll number absent has to be less than equal to n plus 1. No, that is not the case, right? The value could be very large. The maximum roll number could be very large. Right? So for example, I see. Yes, you are right. So that's a good point. The minimum roll number present has to be less than equal to n plus 1. Yes, that is correct. Yes. For each element in the list, if it is less than equal to n, then increment a of element, otherwise ignore. Now iterate through the array. Index of the first element, which is 0, is the answer. If all elements are non-zero, then the answer is n plus 1. Time complexity will be order n. Okay, that's an interesting algorithm. Let me digest that first, right? I'll come to that. Aniruddha says, once we sort in n log n, we need to find the smallest roll number absent, which is another n. Yes, n log n plus n, or n plus n log n plus n. All of this can be done in n log n time, because n log n is the order above order n. Right? So that is correct. Okay, let's understand Park's algorithm. Right? So we are initializing all the elements to 0. Let's say there is a Boolean array of size order, size a of n. Right? And then we are going to initialize all these elements to zeros. So in the worst case, as I gave, 1 to n numbers might be present. Yeah, so since we have only n elements, n roll numbers, therefore you can, the smallest number that is going to be absent has to be between 1 to n plus 1. It cannot be n plus 2th element present, because you are storing only n roll numbers. Right? And therefore, using this observation, this is an important observation, by the way. You can check once you mark each Boolean bit, the value is always going to be between 1 to n plus 1. The bit is going to be, so for example, if you have very large max roll number, let's say 20n or 100n and so on, right? Even if you have that, as soon as you have that, that means that some number in 1 to n is missing, because you have only n numbers. So that is a crucial observation which Parth has made, and that is going to allow us to have the space complexity still order n, and the time complexity will also be order n, because you will be able to find out some bit which is 0 in this order n array. And if all the bits are ones, that means that n plus 1 is the next element which is present. Right? So that seems to be a correct algorithm to me, which has order n time complexity and order n space complexity. Anybody has any suggestions about Parth's algorithm? No. So Chotu, Parth's algorithm will not require order of max roll number space. We are still storing one bit in 1 to n order, 1 to n. So n is the number of elements, and we are still storing it for 1 to n. The observation is that if there is a large number which is present in the input, right, that means that there is some small number which is missing in 1 to n. If there is a large number present in in the input, then there is a small number which is missing, and therefore you just need to track 1 to n numbers. Does that seem reasonable? So just take some example. For example, if you take 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, I'm just sorting it. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, right? Up to, let's say, 10. So all the numbers might be present except for, let's say, 4. Now, if you try to set bits from 1 to 10, right, there is a 15 element also present, suppose. But I'm not going to worry about that 15, because as soon as 15 comes, I know that some element between 1 to 10 is missing, assuming that there are 10 numbers in this array. What if the largest roll number is missing? Exactly. If it's not the largest roll number, you are given only n elements, you are given just n integers, right? If you do not have n integers, if you have only n integers, you can go from only 1 to n maximum. So if all of these are present, then n plus 1th number is the one that is missing. The smallest roll number that is going to be missing is going to be n plus 1. That is what it means. I think it is not yet coming out to be clear, but please think about what Parth has written a little bit. I think you will be able, just try it on a simple example. For example, we took the example of 1 to 10. Let's take that there are 10 elements given. Forget about CHE for now. There are just 1 to 10 elements which are given. And I have this bit array which is also from 1 to 10. So I just go on setting the bits. If I check all the bits are 1. Therefore, the next number missing is going to be 11. That is for sure. Now imagine that instead of 1 to 10, I remove 4. 4 is not present in the input, but I am giving you 10 numbers, which means that maybe I am adding 14 into the input. So now the input array is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14. That is the input that is given. Now when I try to set bits, bits are only 1 to 10. I am not setting the bit for 14 because that is outside the array. I am going to set it for 1, 2, 3, 5, and therefore fourth bit I will not set. So I can just do a linear pass and figure out which bit is missing. Kaushik is asking, can we find the minimum roll number? Yes, that is what we are finding. If it is greater than 1, then 1 is the answer. I didn't understand that. Yeah, the one which is missing could be the first bit. That is possible. But you just need to set those 10 bits. Parth, do you see any problems with your algorithm? Or whatever I have explained, does that seem reasonable explanation of your algorithm? Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so we are done with time. So in case you want to think about it offline, please do. If you have classes, feel free to go ahead. I'll just take up some questions here. Element can be greater than n. Yes. Array can be out of bounds. Yes, you don't set it. If the element is greater than n, you don't worry about it. You don't set the bit. Because if the element is greater than n, there is a guarantee that there is an element between 1 and n which is missing. Because you are given only n numbers. So imagine, right, so that's Mani has agreed. So imagine in the worst case, you are given all the elements which are above n. All the elements are, let's say, about 10. 11 to 20 are the numbers which I have given. And you want to find out the first roll number which is missing. What will you do? You go over 11. It is above 10. I don't care. 20, above 10. I don't care. All of these I don't care. And I don't set any of the bits. What do? You go over the bits array. The first element that is missing is 1. And you just output that as an answer. Okay, so I'm happy that there was this discussion. I'm going to leave you with a question, right? What is that question? Our space complexity is order n, time complexity is order n, right? With Partha's algorithm. Can you do it in a constant additional space? So I'm not allowing you now to have this bit array. Can you still do it in order n time, right? So that is the question which I'm going to leave you with. And we can discuss it in the next class, but mostly I'm going to start talking about linked lists in the next class because we are going to come back to sorting later, but we'll primarily talk about linked lists starting from the next lecture. So see you later.